The following is a presentation of Workplace Health. For more information, visit us online at workplacehealthmag.com.
I'm honored to be able to talk to you guys. I appreciate your time and your interest in this topic. As she said, my name is Scheidt. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel through the Georgia National Guard, but I've been on active duty, reserves, and the National Guard. I retired in August. I was the chief of cyber mission forces for the state of Georgia. We got a cyber protection team, if you didn't know, for the state of Georgia through the DoD 2015 timeframe. And I got promoted to lieutenant colonel at that time because I was one of the only intel officers who could spell cyber. Believe it or not, that's the way things are going right now, with as young as this branch is and as young as this concept is, even in the DoD and the military. So I was an intelligence officer by background. Ended up in cyber because things that they taught me in the military schoolhouse of how I was supposed to track bad guys and look for things and indicators and such wasn't working out in the force, out in the real world. To give you an example, they taught us if you want to quell an uprising, find the person with the megaphone standing on the top of a car or the hilltop or the house or whatever, take that person out, and then everybody else is going to go home because they're going to be hungry because there's nobody to rile them up, right? So you take that guy out. So that's kind of an example of the mentality my peers went out the door with when I got my training back years ago as a captain. So we go out to the world and we're looking for the guy with the megaphone. We can't find him anymore. Come to find out, he's in a cave somewhere 8,500 miles away with this thing called a chat app, spinning up flash mobs in parts of the country, and nobody's ever seen his face or her face or whatever. So I was very slow to accept technology in that sense. I went from a flip phone to what I thought was a cool looking smart type phone. You remember the ones that had just the screen with the app on it before I was like, I'm good. I can just stay at this level right here. I'll never have any issues. Yeah, well, now I'm probably that guy that's got 45 IoT devices of some kind in his house, between his refrigerator and his laptop, cell phone, and the whole 9 yards. That though has scared the crap out of me because I'm also the guy that would wish that none of us had to worry about in this technology. So we'll kind of segue there into what Rush asked me to kind of put together for you guys. In addition to being responsible, and I like to say cyber sciences, we're trying to get Dr. Love to let us say that more. But this area is encompassing cybersecurity, networking specialist skills, computer support specialists, which some of you may hire or have those type of skills associated with your immediate workforce, and of course the classic information technology. We're going to be bringing on another program in the fall called Cyber Forensics Technology. And that's going to be a little bit of a cross between our cybersecurity courses and criminal justice classes. So even somebody that may go out into your HR workforce, if they were to go through that program, they get a little bit of the law enforcement, legal policy side of things, as well as the technical skill side of stuff. And so we'll be kind of launching initiatives like that through the new Savannah Tech Cybersecurity Workforce Education Center. Dr. Love approved the charter for that a couple weeks ago, and so I've got that on my list of unpaid accolades, right? The additional duties. We all get stuck with those at work. But that's an offshoot from, as Rush said, I was at Georgia Southern for 3 years before. I ran the Center for Applied Cyber Education over there. Got Armstrong 2 international designations for their cyber programs, and so in working with those academic teams over there between health informatics, criminal justice, cybercrime. And then getting over here, being with Rush and her team, the accounting guys here and stuff, I'm just constantly finding a spot where cyber flavoring or cyber knowledge may have value in the different degree programs as we're going forward. So I'm kind of going to take this discussion, this presentation from that direction is how I see where nuggets of information that an HR practitioner might think that is not cyber, or might not realize is cyber. So of course, sorry, title's probably not the best. She was like, yeah, do something on human resources for cyber, or cybersecurity and human resources. I was like, okay. I was like, well, what topics do you want me to cover? She said, I don't know what you know. I don't know. So that's our segue. I love discussions more than pontification. So please, if you have any questions as we go, ask them. This is your time, your value. I want y'all to feel that you had value in this. So this is just what I've got if you guys don't ask any questions or have any comments, okay? So just keep that in mind. I want you guys to leave with a set of value. So just the topics I got for us to talk about: cybersecurity overall, cyber attacks, And then we'll roll into where I think the information related to human resources may not be targeted the way that we look at it from the cyber side. So for the longest time, it drove us even in cyber crazy because there was not a definition for what cybersecurity was. This is one up here, Merriam-Webster. That's like just from last year. They finally put a definition in a dictionary that we could refer to. Has anybody ever seen cybersecurity separated into two words? That is also another way of looking at it, but you have cybersecurity as it is here. That is the measures taken to protect, as the definition says. Cybersecurity separated into two words is the bigger, more general, not just talking about necessarily the computer system, but I would say cybersecurity separated even gets into what we're going to talk about for HR. What are things that in any type of professional environment, measures people can take, knowledge they can carry, they can have, that helps with the security of cyber hygiene, cyber posturing, and we've come up with a whole lot more cyber-isms in the last few years in the profession to try to help cover the information that we're trying to share. So the number two, not too many people are saying this. You might not have ever heard this before. I know of only one other professional that's saying this. But the biggest issue that we have from a cybersecurity standpoint is our wetware problem. So everybody heard of hardware? Everybody's heard of hardware? All right, these things right here, right? Heard of software? Right? Operating system, right? Anybody know what the wetware is? Well, if y'all want to take a quick selfie of yourself, feel free to do so, and you'll see the wetware that's the problem in the system. All of us. We are the wetware. This stuff between our ears, this brain with all this water floating around all this fluid, that's the wetware. We're the wetware in the system. So it says, common misunderstanding, cyber threats are not just a technology problem, looking for a technology solution. And I want to kill you on it. I had to pare this down. My Ph.D. got away from me a little bit. And I was like, oh yeah, let's reference all the research so they could have, yeah, if y'all want it, come, I got it. But just say, research data is clear and consistent, showing that employees are the greatest vulnerability of any organization. The NSA has breach problems. The FBI has breach problems. I don't know if you guys might have seen it last week, 2 weeks ago, excuse me, I think it was 3 weeks ago, the United Nations, through two different international enclaves, half the United Nations was taken offline by a breach. All because of somebody clicking something. So there is no organization, I don't care how secure they are, that is 100% secure. And it's because as long as we're relying on employees in our force, we're going to have that wetware concern, if not a large problem. I would at least get it. Hopefully we can get to just minimizing the wetware concern. And so when organizations are looking at, say, oh, we just need to hire more technically savvy, cybersecurity trained people with certifications, that's not the answer. I believe just as much as that is part of the answer, individuals in work roles such as yourselves that have access to monitoring training plans, keeping up with data, we'll go over and we'll see some of this in a couple more slides. You're a gatekeeper. The HR, in my opinion, my professional opinion, the HR peers are gatekeepers to enable the security of your organization. So the largest attack surface, again, we're going back to the wetware discussion. We are the largest attack surface from a cybersecurity threat actor. The people, look at all those common functions. Got you, thought it'd be more bold for y'all. I guess the lights, my lights at 2 in the morning was not as bright as these in here, but I got you guys highlighted down here at the bottom. But I pulled these together just to think about the people, the personnel, the individuals involved. As you guys think about this, take a moment, think about really how many people in other departments do you deal with on a daily basis that has data, that has access to your files, or you have access to theirs and probably don't want them to, and they probably may not want you to. All of that type of interaction and engagement is just a wide open potential vector for something to get in and to affect your organization. And we talk about, even facilities. You think maybe HR, well, facilities ain't got nothing to do with me. You got security plans. How do people get in and out? You have to do background checks on the individuals that come in and out. Some good companies, the HR department is responsible for actually verifying and validating, updating with IT on a regular basis that the access control list for their organization is valid. You got people that they get in trouble after they get hired, right? We always say you got to worry about that drug test or that. I mean, we could do it if we want to at any time. But we understand with costs, right? How often do we really do those? Unless it's a mandate from a government contract or something like that. But if you're in a critical, if you're dealing with critical data, if you're in an organization, I would even say especially things like the healthcare sector, the energy sector. I'm not sure where all you peers are at, but there's a couple of the critical infrastructure sectors that are the most, I'm not saying important, but just the most looked at by threat actors. Of course, healthcare, energy, with our power grid, those types of things. And then commerce, especially online sales. If you're involved with, everybody knows about heard about the Target breach, if you weren't involved in it. Does anybody in here think you were not involved in the Equifax breach? I could do a check, but I don't, even from my perspective, I know I was in it. I already checked. So if I was in it, I almost tell everybody that I talk to, you were in it.
How do you check?
There is a website. You can go to Equifax's website, and I think on the third page, it's about a 3-page over click. You can actually put your name and social security number in there, and they will verify and validate if you were part of it. But I have yet to find anybody that wasn't touched. So that's, I'm saying, just as an example, that we've all been tagged almost in some capacity as we go through. So, and we can't do anything about the Equifaxes. We got to hold their people responsible. But just think about that. It's very likely all of us have been part of a breach. Not in here, but along with that, since remind me to if you need me to write it down or give it to you afterwards. There's another website called haveibeenpawned.com, with pawned being P-W-N-D. That's in the cyber world. It's not P-A-W-N-E-D, like a pawn on a chessboard. Take the A out in cyber, and that's how we got you. You got pawned. But it's haveibeenpawned.com. You can also Google it. But if you put your name and social in there, was there questions?
Say it again.
Haveibeenpawned.com, P-W-N-E-D. Yep. If you go there yourself, and I do this for friends, business partners, peers, people call me sometimes. Hey, can you check on something for me? So I'm gonna give you guys a couple of tools from an HR standpoint that you can kind of use for yourself, and if nothing else, maybe you're traveling executives or people that travel. We'll talk about as we go through. But you go in there, it will literally tell you every breach in history that your name, phone number, or an email has been part of. Awareness right now. There's honestly, great question, right? Can I call somebody? Sadly, I tell you, there is nothing you can do about it except no. And what's G.I. Joe say? Knowing's half the battle. Yo, Joe?
You're going to make us be on our phone the whole time.
That's okay. In this case, I would think you're doing it because we've got some valid interest. No, that's fine. But in this case, what can you do about it? Nothing if we're there. What you can do going forward, though, is put some of the things we're going to talk about in place for yourselves or the members of your organization to help them understand why and how those things, can decrease your organizational security or increase your organizational security posture. Something as simple as anybody in here have school-age kids? Do any of your kids, for example? Because they got these new platforms, that the teachers are using for loading stuff. I think Edmodo is one of them. Anybody heard of that one? Anyway, well, if you have a school-age child that's had to have had an Edmodo account in the last 4 years, you're in a data breach just from that, because Edmodo had a data breach, and I got the email from my daughter who's now 18, but when she was in the 7th grade, had to have it, and I got an email saying that your information was compromised in this breach. So it doesn't have to be like they're trying to get your credit card specifically or go after your organization database per se. The awareness here from HR, a lot of this will be to help maybe educate your own team as you go back. You got to get too far off on that one as we go, but I'll come back around to that in a couple minutes. But look at that number there. Did you guys, I know you probably thought it's big, but 8.5 billion records compromised across all critical infrastructures. So when I say critical infrastructures, I'm referring to like the ones at the national level that we track, the government tracks. Like I said, commerce, healthcare, water treatment facilities, nuclear power plants. The energy sector, and so across the whole, they're tracking 8.5 billion records. Now that's not accounts. That's just like individual file records. This isn't even accounts. How many accounts were breached or part of data breaches? This is just files, just records. Again, the wetware can largely be held responsible for this significant rise. So I'll read some of this off for those of you in the back, just to give you an example. So records exposed due to misconfigured servers, including publicly accessible cloud storage. Anybody in here use Office 365? That's public cloud storage. Unsecured cloud databases. Anybody use Dropbox in your company? Yes. That's unsecured cloud storage. Dropbox had a breach 3 years ago. Improperly secured resync backups. That might be a little bit more in the IT guys' world or something, but that's one of the causes. Open internet connected network area storage devices. Do any of you guys have file servers in your organizations that are kind of like maybe Wi-Fi? You can access them through Wi-Fi or that's a open internet connected network storage device. All of that we just talked about accounted for 86% of the records compromised in 2019. Think HR don't have anything to do with cyber? What's that?
Yeah, but it's getting the cyber guy to listen.
Well, hopefully maybe we can get them in on another one. But we're going to talk about though. That's part of this point here. We'll see in a couple of slides. The recommendation and an expectation is that they start listening to you guys, and you guys start forcing yourself or presenting yourself more for a seat at the table when it comes to the decisions on policies, especially because you're the gatekeepers. You're tracking who's coming where and who and what, how they're getting in the door. They're coming in. You get all that data to start with. 2018 employee error. So now, negligence. 40% of data breaches in 2018. 40% was just from negligence and employee error. Now, employee error doesn't mean they intentionally did anything wrong. It truly could have been just tap the wrong button, just click the wrong file. So error, it's just being classified. It was an error, intentional or not. But employee error and negligence would be just absent-minded, really not paying attention to the right protocols, procedures and such. But all of those two things counted for 40% in 2018. It says it may not seem high. It's a number that could virtually be eradicated with carefully executing precautions be put in place. I agree with that. The wetware is the biggest problem in all of our networks. So it goes back to kind of a little bit off of the statement she just made about getting the cyber guy to listen. Not all IT personnel are cyber people. I'm not an IT person. I'm a cyber guy if we're going to break it down in that type of lingo. IT deals with architecture. They deal with putting all this stuff together, making it work. There's a degree of security expectation. They do get training. They know how to configure stuff so ports and things are closed or open or allowable and stuff like that. But the IT as a field, that's not your cyber security guys. Some of them have no cybersecurity training beyond whatever is required to just do that degree or that course. Here, as an example, in our programs, we have, as I said, we have IT degree, we have a networking specialist degree, we have computer support specialist, and then we have the cybersecurity, separate from that. Our cybersecurity degree is a whole standalone, doesn't have a lot of crossover from networking or computer support specialists. Computer support specialists and networking for us does have a decent amount of elective slots that I could load cybersecurity coursework into for a student that was interested in it, but it's not a natural fit right now and yet based on the courses. I'll give you an example. Networking specialist, your IT person is worried about the architecture and the hardware and making sure whatever software you need to do your job, specialized HR software, whatever it may be, that's their area of making sure all that stuff works and you can perform your daily functions. A networking specialist is worried about the movement of the data on that architecture. And so they're worried about is the right switch configured. There's some security in it, but they're really focused on the offensive, I guess, the good guy side of just making sure the data is flowing through what IT has built. Does that make sense so far? Now, cybersecurity, I tell you, the classes that my students take for cybersecurity here is network defense and countermeasures, which is I'm teaching right now, network security. Next semester will be computer forensics and hacking and penetration testing. Now, none of those classes are in the IT or the networking specialist degree program. So you see where I was going with that when I say, so your IT, where we think, oh, it's IT, it's cyber. It's not, all right? There's a lot of cross-training going on. So as we talk about the talent shortage, I focus on this a little bit for you from the HR area to understand that, or be able to see maybe how you can have an influence on decreasing this shortage, making the workforce that you have a little bit more relevant, understanding how to send them to either recommend for them for additional training. And we're going to talk another slide or so. You may have people inside your organization that are viable to transition into cybersecurity, more of cybersecurity focused personnel for your organization. It's not just the IT. It's not just the computer nerds that can do cyber well. We have a massive shortage on females in the field. We have a massive shortage on minorities of across the whole spectrum. It does not mean that middle-aged white guys are the only ones that can do this or know this. I know some female peers of mine that can run circles around me, and they impress the heck out of me. I can't keep up with you. And they did not start there. They came from either an economics background. I know a couple of my female peers came from economics backgrounds, came from business backgrounds, from legal backgrounds, and just in the course of professional new roles as they went through their careers, ended up sitting there with just enough interest that somebody was like, yeah, we need to do something about this security stuff. And you want to do it? Yeah, sure. That's how they end up there at times. Like I just mentioned in my opening, that's pretty much how I ended up there. I was the only person that could spell cyber in all of the Georgia Army National Guard. But I used it as an intel officer, so I could do better intel operations, track bad guys in caves and stuff. So in that talent shortage, cybersecurity is multidisciplinary, requiring knowledge of technology. Not like you don't need to know where the BIOS and the motherboard, what the motherboard looks like in this. Just knowledge of technology. How does it work? Do you understand how the stuff flows? Understanding that this is a client, this is a monitor, this is a keyboard. And that's pretty basic, but there's some people that don't even really know what we call this what it's called in the overall technology scheme. But again, some other areas: human dynamics, finance. Finance is huge right now. Auditors. Oh man, an accountant or an auditor with a couple of good basic cyber certifications right now will be worth gold over the next 20, 25 years. Risk, law, regulations, all of those as a starting or an entry point, if you have those individuals in your organization, they could be part of the program that helps you increase cybersecurity opportunities within your organization. We got a quote down here at the bottom. Ideally, a major in computer science provides the foundation. I would agree. The foundation of understanding how to speak the technology. I would agree with that. But if you're driven, passionate about cybersecurity, you can come from any background. That is true. I've got students in the cybersecurity program right now that came from welding. They came from nursing, barbering. What's my other good student? Got a couple other good students that, of course, logistics. That makes a little bit of sense. But those are A students right now in the cybersecurity concept, and they ask a lot of interesting questions beyond just the tech guys that think they know everything. And this is where we call the concept. It might help you to speak to your peers. Called the accidental cybersecurity professional. And that was me. That's what I would claim. Cyber didn't exist even in the military. Cyber, it wasn't a thing. We called it many other names. We called it electronic warfare. We called it information operations. We called it a whole bunch of stuff before we got it to where it is now. The job postings in the cybersecurity field have gone up 74%. Has HR jobs gone up 74%? So I was like, I got a job wherever I want to go. And I tell my students, I tell them, as long as you care and you have the competency, as it said on the other slide, as long as you have the interest and know it's not like fast money, but it's long-term guaranteed in that respect. So it's gone up 74% in the past 5 years. Estimates that there are currently 1 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs worldwide. That's worldwide. That's not far off. And it's not, we're not shrinking that gap. All the programs you hear about, all the schools that have programs, we are barely able to touch providing skilled talent to bring that number down. Women make up only 11% of the world's information security workforce, of the world, not just in America, but 11% of the world. Only 1% of the leadership worldwide is held by women in the area of cyber. So as we talked about, that last one just talking about, it's becoming very common for people to move into the needs of the cybersecurity workspace within organizations from other careers. So I just wanted to show you this real quick as we're talking. This is like my little one-sheeter, I guess, if you could have a one-sheet Bible. This is it when I'm talking about who's who or what's what in the zoo per se. Classically, can you guys see that in the back? Relatively okay? Yeah. So a classic view that I've seen most of the time is everybody thinks this is cybersecurity. What you have here, this is the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework. This has been accepted by the government, every government agency, every contracting firm that works for the government. You know, they're all held to this standard of who's who in your zoo when it comes to the national cybersecurity workforce. When we think about cybersecurity, these 7 categories are how we're looking at it across the country. These white blocks are work. Right now, they're considered examples of work roles inside of categories. But each one of these white blocks can have anywhere from 3 to 26 job title positions in them. And each one of those up to 26 positions has an exhaustive list of KSAs associated with each job title position. From an HR standpoint, you want to write a really good job description, I can show you, at least in this space, where to get the information from. But at the same time, when you look at this on this large view, some of these I can tell you are expected inside of one person's job. You know, it might be expected to have some knowledge of vulnerability assessments, testing and evaluation, system security analysis, a bit of threat analysis, exploitation analysis, some digital forensics. And depending on where they're at, what they like to do, they may be part of an education or training team inside the organization. Now, even if these were just titled roles themselves, that's still a lot that's going on for 1 or 2 people inside of an organization's keeping up with everything. What I thought was most interesting, and the reason why I refer to this so much, is that I say that I got to cyber by way of Intel. Little did I know until I started outside the military that I was always in cyber and didn't know it. This category right here, analyze, threat analysis, exploitation analysis, all source intelligence, and targeting. I was an all source intelligence officer for 16 years before I ever saw this chart. Did not know that technically I was a member of the national cybersecurity workforce. Y'all catch that like real quick? So you probably have, you yourselves, as we talk, if you've got some skill sets, individuals in your organization may be part of the larger cybersecurity workforce of your organization than what you realized before today. It's not just the IT department. All the way down through any police officer, for example, that has taken a class and has an expectation in their job to perform any type of basic digital forensics on being able to take these things apart and pull data off of them, they're part of the national cybersecurity workforce. So if you got any questions on that, we can come back to it or we can talk about it some more. But usually the security provision and the operate maintain categories is where everybody kind of sees IT degrees, networking specialists, computer support specialists. Cybersecurity takes you through those. And the conceptual understanding of cybersecurity starts to take you down into the other 5 where they fit in. Before I came here, I was working with Dr. Morris, the new dean, and I'd say, hey, everybody's got cybersecurity degrees. You don't need another cybersecurity degree. So I helped her build, and we pitched to TCSG a cyber operations analyst degree. They said, oh, we already got cybersecurity. It looks kind of like that. Me, I'm like, no, it is entirely different. But even in the education world, they don't quite see and understand yet. We're still learning ourselves. What's the difference between cybersecurity, cyber operations, cyber forensics technology, which is the other degree I'll be bringing online in the fall here. Everybody thinks it's cybersecurity. It's not. Cyber operations is really getting after the offensive and defensive activities, watching things going on a network. My last organization that I worked at over at Georgia Southern before coming here, and I was doing a meeting about it before we came up, but the skill sets that the students that we were putting through the program over at the Armstrong campus of Georgia Southern, and I was there before the consolidation, building all the cyber stuff, I was able to put 7 students fresh out of college straight into the NSA as exploitation analysts. $78,000 a year starting job, 25 years old. NSA flew them in 3 different interview sessions, paid for the whole trip, 5-star hotel, everything. These kids were coming back to me like, you wasn't kidding. I'm like, and so the thing about that was, though, they were criminal justice cybercrime students. They looked at this chart and they were like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. The skills, when you read and this is where I'm coming back to this for HR professionals, they didn't understand how to read the job description. The skills and the knowledge and all the KSAs on an NSA exploitation analyst job posting matched what we were teaching them in the criminal justice cybercrime program. They still didn't believe me after I told them that for about 2 months. We had a career fair, had the NSA rep come down. She was out there on the floor. I took 3 of them over there and I was like, hey, Julian, these are 3 criminal justice cybercrime students. You've already reviewed our curriculum. Do they qualify for anything in your organization? Yeah, you got their resumes? Like, that's the first thing an NSA rep said. She didn't ask their name. She knew the program. She knew what we were doing. She knew that I understood this chart. And just because I walked up with 3 students, she wanted their resume. She didn't ask their name, where they were from, just knew the training and kind of the direction that they had, and that I wasn't going to bring anybody up there that didn't follow that. But those students were out looking for just like police officer jobs. No problem with that. But that's where they thought they fit at from a human resources value standpoint. Some of them went on, got other certifications, even inside of that. And by the time they graduated, I had them certified as vulnerability assessors, disaster recovery engineers, and ethical hackers outside of beyond academics. That covers about 6 different ones of those blocks. And the kid was 25 years old. I didn't start college till I was 25. If you can believe that. I was that kid. I was late. I didn't get a smartphone until last year. No. So here, what we're doing, as I mentioned earlier, follow on from this, Dr. Love has blessed me with a new additional duty as the director of the Cybersecurity Workforce Education Center. That has a K-12 initiative outreach that I'm responsible for. So we'll be doing cyber camps for high school students. I've already got it on the schedule for for June. I've got experience with that at the other organization for the last few years, but also helping organizations with cyber-related education development, policy planning, questions, just a question. Call me, call the team, whatever. But if you're in this area, you have a resource now, if you weren't aware of it, that will help you and help your organization get after that. There's no I don't consider anything too small. And with this center, the best thing about it is I can now hire students in work studies and as interns to work for what I have them do. Or if any of you want to partner, you give me a task, you got a project, you need data analysis done, you need something that I can have them do that's okay with your organization, that gives them skills and training and makes them marketable. We're taking on all of that to try to help with the area. So there's another site. It's called cyberseek.org. At 3 o'clock this morning, this was really cool, interactive, but then I don't know what happened. I think I lost my macros at 3:15. So I had to come back to the old classic, just click the slide. Let me see if it'll pull up. But I want to show you guys this as we're talking. So you can see where some of my information is coming from that can be also at your fingertips. So we're in Georgia, so I'm just going to stick with Georgia. This is cyberseek.org. Security supply and demand heat map. As a human resources person, I don't know if you guys look at other personnel as supply, from a supply and demand asset. But this is your cyber, as an example. If we go over here to Georgia, you just get off. In Georgia right now, there's 18,378 open cybersecurity positions. If we click on Georgia, for the sake of this, is where, let me scroll down real quick before we do that. Here's our national level. 500,000. Currently, we have about 1 million employed in what we would, and now this isn't the whole of that other chart I just told you. This is really more of some of the classic cybersecurity, only probably maybe 3 of the 7 categories. So this isn't even all of them. They're still building on this and working on it. But this gets after the critical ones that are needed to help make sure the systems and the networks are secured. Supply, very low. 1.4. The national average for any other field on average is 2.0 availability of a worker for that workforce. Over here, top job titles in demand. Kind of list some of them there. Interesting here is these are those 7 categories I just showed you on the other big chart. And so this goes across at the national level. There are 300,000 job openings for people to work in the operate and maintain category. All the way down, overseeing, govern, analyze. This is where those exploitation analysts are at that I was telling you about. Myself as a former Intel worker. Down here, this is digital forensics. This is the investigations category. Over here, these are some of the top main industry certifications. And what you've got is the orange number is people that have said they have it versus how many job postings at whatever level you're looking at require it. So when I have people come to me and they say, well, how do I make myself, I know I'm not going to a high position right away, but I want to be more marketable if I can than anybody else. And I say, well, you got to pretty much get this one if you can, no problem. But how valuable is an entry-level person coming in with this here versus down here? Remember that whole accounting auditor thing I said at the very beginning? Accountants, risk managers, people that pick up this one certification right here. Right? There are 36,000 people in the country that claim it, but there's 60,000 job openings right now for people to have it.
So that's the one specific for accounting folks.
I would say it's one of them. It's one of them. And then you've got a CISM down here. This is an information security manager, and it does not have to be the CIO. It does not have to be the director of IT. That could be, somebody can hold that certification if they're a vice president of something, or they're the director of HR. Or they're a member, they're just in the HR department. And so that's even worse overall. When you look at it, again, this is the national average, so I'll just jump to Georgia. The same concept, we click on Georgia, it just scales it down. Everything is still the same. There's still 18,000 cybersecurity job openings here. Now over here, the same thing. When I talk to students about where they're going to go, or individuals that ask me about advice, same thing. Look, I mean, that's still, if you're going to go after something and spend your time, and especially if you're at a mid-level or somebody at a mid-level of their career and higher, this is I don't tell people to go up here. I'm like, go down here, because you instantly improved your viability. But we still have the same issues here on scale for open jobs. And then here, this is Georgia. Some of them look like the national average, but the other, and you can break this down some more if you have the time. You can jump through some things. Talk about career pathway. So we got common cybersecurity feeder roles. So these are roles. Look at that right there. Financial and risk analysis. I guarantee they didn't take a computer science class or degree at least. But you hit these feeder roles here. If you come over here at the entry level, and these are just some, this isn't an exhaustive list, but you asked about, there's IT auditor right there. Boop. At the mid-level, oh, look, I didn't show you over here. And that was here. We ain't even got to that. It drops down a little bit, but now as you feed, you can. Again, and that's the greatest thing about this field is it's what you're interested in. If you have an interest, if someone started out as an IT computer science type person, doesn't mean that's where you have to stay the whole time. And that's what I was saying. People coming in from other entities, law, accounting, risk, economics, even human resources, maybe at your level, but looking at just an additional ability to strengthen yourself or others, gets into, as where I was going, the role of human resources, as I say, is all about implementing best practices to help with organizational change management. I'm not sure if it's all of you, but I always say if the people in HR would learn how to write the job descriptions for the people that they actually want, you'd get a lot more people. At the same time, I don't know if it's some organizations kind of have a standard. They got to have all of this. But have you ever questioned why do they got to have all this? You're not going to find somebody with a bachelor's degree and 7 years of security experience, for what you want to pay them. You saw what they can get probably almost anywhere other than any of us in here. And they can get that. I am drastically underpaid. Drastically. I don't say that to toot my horn. I'm just saying from a skill set, and just as an example, I'm probably at least $100,000 underpaid for the skill set that I've been blessed with. But there's more than life than just money. Can't beat the professional capital. I own 12 academic programs. I can't get that even at $100,000. But I then what took us from the previous slides into the second bullet there, ensuring critical cybersecurity roles are filled consistent, and your guide is that framework. So I said, I gave you the one pager. That link there, for anybody that would like the slides, of course you can get them either through me or Rush, not a problem. But if you click on that link there, it takes you over to the national website that breaks all this stuff down for you, like even more than we have any amount of time to be able to do here. And so, of course, you can just Google that. Just Google the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework, and that link will come up. Safeguarding sensitive data and employee information, and spearheading efforts to mitigate the risks of insider threat. So that's probably a big one. That the negligence aspect of that one slide earlier, that's really where you get the insider threat, most impact affecting your organization through that insider threat. HR should have a hand in helping to prioritize and manage the data that is floating around inside of your organization. Do you guys have access to financial records? Health records? Somebody gets hired, you got some type of medical review or something that might be done. Their social security number, credit card numbers, maybe not your employees, but credit card numbers of the organization, purchase cards, P cards, things like that, employee ID numbers. So we try to say, we give them an employee ID number so that the social security number is not like always out there. It takes me like 3 clicks inside your database to find everybody's social security number, having their employee ID number. And I'm not even good at this stuff. I'm not being humble when I say I'm not even good at this stuff compared to the people the other people that are out there that get to do it all day, every day. So you got confidential data. The thing I wanted to stress here, and I would say if you take a note away from at least this slide, your organizational confidential data had better be encrypted. I used to say should be. I'm telling you, had better be if you don't want, when you're breached, when one of your executives get whaled, they click on something from a phishing campaign, or even, I've done it myself. Usually I catch myself though, but I have clicked it, and then I'm like, shit, they're going to be calling me for that. They do. You of all people, I know, I'm not. So if it happens to me, it's still out there. But that confidential data in your organization, from an HR perspective, do you know, is it encrypted? Is it going through encrypted browsers? Is it being stored on encrypted databases? Because that does, the training skills, knowledge that I have, I do know in my training when I've gone into a database to practice things and I see this file that's encrypted, I'm not even wasting my time. I can do it. It's going to take too long when I can just go over here to this other database set that is not encrypted and buy new houses and make new credit cards and take out loans and everything. So again, private data, we would say, is your organization's proprietary information and maybe company research data, R&D maybe, if you have an organization like that or you're associated with it. Your public data, not really anything you can do about that. That's understandable. You got to have the websites, you got to have your postings, your SEC postings and stuff like that for some organizations on the website. That's understandable, and that's like an acceptable level of risk. There is a little bit more than we need to worry about here, but there are things using even public available data that a threat actor, a threat group can exploit to steal, cause problems. But most of our public data is so generic, it's going to take them too long to worry about that. I would just say anything, if anything of value is on this slide, it's ask the question, see where it fits for you. Your organizational confidential data must be, if it's not, stand on somebody's desk and ask them why it's not encrypted. If it's not all the data itself, wherever you store it, why and is that encrypted or not? Because even a physical break-in, I gotta stop saying I. Used to teach in military classes, try to scare them. I'm not trying to scare y'all. But someone with the right training, I don't need to take out, does anybody know how the Target breach, what the start of the Target breach was? We all got pissed off at Target, right? We're like, oh man, we pay y'all all the time. Y'all got our credit card numbers, blah, blah. Target didn't actually get breached. Target took the rap, and Target is the focus for being responsible for the breach. It was a HVAC subcontractor of theirs who had access to control the HVAC system. They were breached, and their access to Target's network through what's supposed to be third-party trusts is how Target and all of our stuff, if you guys are part, got compromised. Target was great. Some of our bigger names. Now I talk about Equifax, a whole different story. They were poo-poo from the bottom up. They had people that should not have been in the positions they were in. But Target, but we can't have those. Those conversations don't come out of the news, and they're not necessarily going to tell you that because Target can take the HR team at Target can take a reputation hit. They can absorb that better than that other small mom and pop that might have been working with Target for 20 years, 30 years. Conceptually, some people care about that. Some don't at times. But that's kind of an example of why, Target got breached, Best Buy got breached. It's not always the main company that you hear about. Probably 9 times out of 10, if you hear of a large organization getting breached, their systems didn't get breached. One of their second or third party subs that does have to go at times through HR to be validated or signed off on for access of their personnel to come into your facility or associate with it. So what human resources professionals should do, now this is partly my professional opinion, but there is also a little guide. It's down at the bottom there. I'm sorry, but if you were to Google cybersecurity is everyone's job, there's a national publication produced by NIST, the National Institute of Standards, and I forgot what the T was for. Just know them as NIST. But that's a free document. You can download it, and I pulled the conversational pieces of that from this. So leverage 800-181. That's the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework that we've talked about. I showed you the visual version of what they say here. Reference the framework for workforce planning. If you're involved in any type of job description development, identifying personnel inside of your organization as you come up with, I'm not sure how everybody does it, but I know there's probably at least a biannual and annual performance review done at many companies. We would hope it would be more, but I'm sure. But that type of information and that are we still expecting people in their particular roles to continue doing things the way that they've always done them before? Is there an aspect of professional life today that wasn't there, in the past when these positions were started? Ensure cybersecurity knowledge, skills, and abilities are incorporated into employee training and development programs, of course, to whatever extent and degree that you and your office may be able to do that. Where's the first place people run to when they need to complain about something going on with their job? It's HR, right? I mean, I know some bigger companies have a couple of maybe. In general, it's HR. You don't want to get called by HR, and you want to run to HR when you need them. You don't want the IRS in your pocket, but you want your money back, right? So again, some more. Mitigate risk introduced by new hires by performing background checks. And I would caveat that to say, if you have, within your organization, some type of at least middle to high level management, I don't care that they're making $100,000+ a year. That doesn't mean they're not stupid sometimes. I am. And I know this stuff, like I dream this stuff, unfortunately. Doesn't matter. At some point, after they get in the door, you need to do another review. General painting company, maybe not. They get a contract to paint Hunter Army Airfield. You might want to check your people before you let them go on to Hunter Army Airfield. Not everybody does that. They would just get, we got the contract. All right, get Jim, Bob, Jan, Joe, and get them over there. Well, you didn't realize that 2 weeks ago, Jim didn't report to you that DUI that he got that's still, sitting out there because we haven't done a background check. So I'm not saying it's all the time. I'm just saying that think about it from where it might fit inside of your role as an HR professional and see that if you step out, if your organization grows, if you're looking at opportunities, everybody else is going to assume that everything's good if you don't tell them. Be vigilant, ensuring the selector of vendors that can effectively maintain the confidentiality of employee personnel information. This is where I was going to talk about that Target thing. I kind of got ahead of myself. Some examples, if you're interested, NIST 171, we call it the 171 rule, and the CMMC. I put those because all this stuff is really, really long, even though you don't understand the acronyms. The CMMC is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. It's a 5-stage process that helps evaluate organizations themselves and their own vendors on where they're at a susceptible cybersecurity risk posture. And that CMMC is, as of January 1st of this year, it is a Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment budgeted. Your tax dollar money is paying for that forever now, and that will be the standard by which the government assesses its own contractors and vendors as they move forward. There are clauses that, as of end of last year, are now in contracts, and if you do not hit at least a level 1 minimum threshold on that CMMC, you don't even. They go through you got 27 pages up front. They go to page 28, and if it says 1 and you need to be at a 2, they don't care. You could be best cost, low cost, whatever. It's at that, based on the president's order, it's at that level of focus now. So just some guidance if you're interested in how to look at that, depending on the size of your organization. Protect access to your human resource management platform. There's a whole bunch of those to talk about. We're talking about making sure that it's going, strong. Make sure I wasn't about to blow. Did I forget to turn something off? I got a proximity alarm going on. Strong passwords, unique passphrases for each critical account, multi-factor authentication. No, one more little token, one more little thing is aggravating, but it will, as simple as it may sound and unimportant to them, if that HVAC company had a multi-factor authentication of even just using the Google Authenticator on somebody's smartphone in order to get to the net through something or to access one, we would have never been part of the target breach. So multi-factor authentication of any kind, whether it's, some companies I've worked for, we have to carry around an additional little dongle or fob. I don't know if you guys may have seen that, and it goes, keep it on your keychain. You go to log into the company website, and you got to pull it. You got to also then get your number at whatever time it is right there and put that in. That's multi-factor authentication. But you can have a management platform that operates using the Windows Authenticator or the Google Authenticator app on a phone. And that's strong. It's following the same practices as those other little things. It's just running on their platform. Recruiting, performance, compensation, and benefits. There's a term called doxing. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard that, but the term doxing is where high-ranking, middle to high-ranking individuals of any type of organization, all of that stuff is acquired, recruiting information, performance data, compensation stuff, and then it's like put out on the web for everybody to see. Do all of your senior people in your organizations want all of their information floating around out there? If for no other reason, maybe competitive advantage, right? We don't want necessarily our competitors to know what people are making. If nothing else, for a comparison piece. Now the other person's HR is able to recruit them away with a $1 a year difference. I think it takes a little bit more than that these days. Talked about passwords and whatnot. So this is what we all should do. Ensure that all operating systems and applications are at their most current. If you work in don't confirm this. If you work in an organization that's still running Windows XP or Windows 7, I would never log onto that system again while I was working there. That's just me. Windows 10 should be at least that for a Windows system. And Macs are pretty good. They're constantly updated. So if you got Macs in your organization, that's not really a big issue right now on the Mac operating system. But Windows is a very big deal right now because Windows 7 end of life is this month, the 27th of this month. Windows 7 will not be receiving any more patches from Microsoft. Your company can pay to extend that for another 2 years because they've been too lazy to upgrade their systems. Other than breaches, when we talk about, you guys have heard the ransomware attacks, WannaCry, if you remember that term in the news not too long ago, NotPetya. These are just some names of viruses, malware, and stuff that's been put out there. It was because the infections were so massive because organizations got lazy, countries even, China being one of them, but different story, got lazy and didn't want to continue to buy and upgrade their systems as they were going along. So you have organizations that are still operating on Windows 7 and Server 2008. My associate's degree students, I will not train them on anything less than Server 2019, now that it's out, and a Windows 10 platform. What good am I doing sending them out into the workforce, sending them to you guys, if I'm training them on Windows 2008 and the bad guys are already kicking our butts on 2019? So where are we at collectively in that respect? When working from home, again, just think about it. You have to, do you have telework in your organization? Do you have executives, especially that travel? When was the last time the phone or the computer that your traveling salesperson or rep or teleworker, when was the last time y'all actually analyzed those systems? When was the last time their phone was imaged, or when was that computer imaged? They go through airports, they go through public hotspots, sitting at Starbucks, right, having coffee and stuff. Does your organization have an IT audit plan? Not for the big everyday computer systems, but the ones where people are out in the vulnerable areas. We should use virtual private networks to access corporate networks whenever possible. Additional security, browsers on the mobile device. It's kind of small, I guess now. I'm sorry for in the back. Brave and Orfox are two mobile browsers that are encrypted. The data on them are already encrypted. Anybody can download those from the Play stores. On your laptop, Firefox, Iridium, IceCat. You notice you do not see Google or Explorer up there. It's okay inside your organization. It's okay at home. I'm talking here, if we're working from home, we're out in the public. Those two have a lot of data collection for privacy issues. And not that it's an issue that the data is being collected on where your person is, if it's an organizational piece of equipment, but the fact that just sitting beside somebody in a Starbucks or at an airport's the worst. But even today, people with skills like I have can connect to your devices while I'm riding beside you in a car on the road. It is very likely that many of us, if this is the first time you've ever met each other, it is very likely, if you remember faces well, if not names, in the next 2 weeks, your social media accounts are going to be recommending each other in this room to your friends list. Before you walked in here, somebody in here has your Bluetooth on right now on your device. Somebody in here is still connected to your social media apps while we're in here talking. All of those things, we can't see it. I wish I had the glasses that would let us, but it looks like there's nothing going on here. Every one of your phones are talking to each other, including to mine, back and forth. If you got Bluetooth on, that thing's pinging. Here, you walk by NFCs, you got like you use pay wallets and stuff, and you start using them on your phone. You walk by a vending machine downstairs, just tap it. With the right little other piece of software, just walking up and down the aisle, somebody can pull all your stuff off of that if you got it enabled on your phone. I say that, not to scare your course here, but just take this information back to your people that are traveling outside of your organization on trips. Do not turn anything on that you don't have to. Do not connect to anything that you don't have to. And if you do, try to use the most secure type of connection possible. I guess I kind of went over that. Same thing that's our traveling piece there. Secure your connections to the enterprise. Do not connect to a hotel Wi-Fi without having a VPN, especially if it's an organizational device. You may not know it, but like again, if you got your Bluetooth on, if you got your Wi-Fi thing on, if you ever walk through a hotel, you see like these things here. This is a repeater here with someone sitting in one of those rooms with the right piece of less than $20 software off of Amazon that's connected to that can follow you. They can tell you wherever you're at in that hotel at any point, because you did a handshake to that device, and now your digital signature for your phone or your tablet has now done a handshake to that device. And they saw the data packets go from there to there, and I know that this repeater is repeater 2, and it's outside the elevator. So I now know where you're standing, and I'm on the first floor. They're on the first floor, and you're on the 5th floor.
They even tell you that in hotels, like, well, at least the ones I found.
That's good if they do, because most of them don't care. They're like, we don't care. Did anybody travel in the days before the Wi-Fi prevalence that we still had to like plug the hard line into our? That's still the safest thing to do. If you have if you go someplace, especially a decent 3-star plus, and if they've got that hard cable connection, plug into that if you can. So again, it takes us back to notes to leaders. I would say, based on our time, I'll just say, be proactive in working with other business functions to address cyber-related risks. Yeah, not too bad. I think I'm about 5 minutes over my time. I'm sorry. So that's the biggest takeaway from everything we've talked about is your leaders, you talking to your leaders. If you see the value in it, request a seat at the table for policy planning, for at least getting another main department's perspective who's controlling the wetware. You guys, if nothing else, control the wetware in that organization. And I'll stop with that, pending any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this presentation of Workplace Health. For more, you can visit us online at workplacehealthmag.com.